Ladies and gentlemen, many of you might remember the chess cheating scandal of 2022. That one is more or less over between Magnus Carlsen and Hans Niemann. But today, October 12th, 2023, the chess cheating scandal has a second chapter. We are looking at it in round 2 of the Qatar Masters Open currently going on. And before we jump into all of this, I just want to thank the sponsor of today's video, Skillshare. Folks, Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creative people, and it covers a huge range of topics, from illustration to graphic design to photography to music to marketing and productivity. And who knows, maybe after this ad read, chess. The lessons are all on demand, so you can learn at your own pace, no matter your skill level. You can use Skillshare to learn valuable business skills and invest in a future career. For example, by taking MKBHD's class on YouTube success, or Ruth Clo's class on professional tips in social media copywriting. Or you can just have fun and learn something. Me personally, I'm gonna try Skillshare for home improvement and design. I moved into this apartment 5 months ago and I still have stains on my walls from the previous tenant. I'm just not good at this stuff. But Skillshare will help. And so, my friends, I highly recommend that you give Skillshare a try today. The first 500 of you that sign up are gonna get 30 days free and 40% off your first year of Skillshare membership. Whether you just wanna have fun and learn new things, or you're trying to level up in your career or start a side hustle, Skillshare has an option for all of you. Now let's get back to the video. Thanks, sponsored Gotham. Today, my friends, in Qatar, something insane happened. Alisher Suleymanov, a grandmaster from Kazakhstan rated 2,512, defeated Magnus Carlsen in a monstrous game, sacrificing pieces, 2 brilliant moves, 97% accuracy. He played an incredible game. I'm going to show it to you, and then I'm going to show you the tweet, actually 3 tweets, that Magnus put out after the game concluded. And it's not exactly what you think. Magnus made no accusations whatsoever against his opponent. The bigger question was, his opponent was wearing a watch during the game. Watches are not allowed in these tournaments. They are against International Chess Federation regulations. And Magnus even brought it up to the arbiter, the referee, who said his opponent was allowed to wear a watch because it wasn't a smartwatch. It was an analog watch. That is what this cheating scandal is all about. His opponent played a fantastic game. This is not on the level of the other one, but let's jump into this game. We got to also give credit to this young Kazakh grandmaster. I sat next to Alisher Suleymanov a couple of years ago, 4 years ago at this point, in the Czech Republic. Good player. Let's take a look at this game, then let's take a look at Magnus's social media posts afterwards. And he does bring up a valid issue. So Alisher began with d4. Magnus went for a Queen's Indian defense with pawn to b6. One of the ways of developing the light-scored bishop, and then the dark-scored bishop will come out over here. And then Alisher played this move a3. Very simple. He just wants to prevent black from ever putting a bishop on the b4 square, okay? Bishop to a6, queen to c2, defending the pawn, and now Magnus goes back. He didn't want to put the bishop there in the first place because the queen wouldn't have moved. So this is one of the ways of making the queen not have defense of the d5 square. Now Magnus plays c5. Alisher plays this very aggressive move e4 in the center of the board. His idea is to grab the center and basically punish Magnus for baiting this queen out this way. Right, Magnus is saying, well, your queen is now not controlling the d file. So Alisher says, okay, well, your setup allows me to play this move pawn to e4. Now Magnus takes and plays bishop to c5. And here, the main line is knight to b3 targeting the bishop, but Alisher plays knight to f3, retreating the knight back this way. And now in this position, there's a really, really absurd line, which is knight to g4. And that is actually very difficult to defend f2. I don't think white wants to undevelop this knight, although it is a possibility. There's actually a line here, according to the computer, where you can actually allow this knight in and like try to trap it here. It's really weird stuff. Clearly, Alisher knew that this was a move because he spent almost no time on knight f3. But Magnus played knight c6. Magnus actually spent 5 minutes here. He did not choose to go for knight to g4, which might be the critical move, but it's not it might lead to a forced draw. Sometimes in the opening, if you try to be too aggressive and forceful, things happen and they actually backfire. So Magnus chooses to play knight to c6. Alisher plays b4, kicking out his bishop. And you can kind of see here already, Magnus is very passive. Like, white has 3 pawns out on the front ranks. He's fighting for activity in the center. And now Magnus plays this move, queen to b8. Now, to the untrained eye, that looks beyond stupid. But it's got a point. The idea is that he's going to follow up with d6 to fight for the center. and after castling, he's going to put his rook here. And this setup by black with a bunch of pawns on the 6th rank is called the hedgehog. Spiky. A spiky little setup. A little bit difficult for white to break through. The way white wants to break through against that opening is to try to create some sort of attack, right? So rook to d1 played by Alisher. You see he's now spending time, right? He spends about 10 minutes, 12 minutes developing the bishop, and then rook d1, and Magnus castles. And Alisher goes bishop to e2. It's crazy he had to spend 16 minutes on that move. He was probably calculating other things, maybe like g3, bishop g2, maybe putting the bishop on d3. You're playing Magnus, you spend 16 minutes moving a bishop 1 square, terrific. And now here we have this setup. So Alisher brings his second rook. Magnus undevelops the bishop to the f8 square, potentially to go there in the future. Also to just defend this and use this as a transfer point. And Alisher does the exact same thing. His bishop is doing a good job on that diagonal from f1 to a6, especially if this pawn moves and the rooks are powerful. This is the position. Here, Magnus started getting provocative. Because again, black is not really in a situation here to call shots, right? He's like a little bit passive, kind of sitting there waiting. So Magnus plays knight to e7. He plays it quickly. Look at it, he doesn't really lose any time. Alisher now realizes, okay, black is very passive. I mean, it's Magnus. So, you know, Magnus is doing what Adesanya did against Pereira, right? He's up against the fence. He's going like this. And when you overextend, he's going to come over the top and he's going to knock you out. So Alisher hesitates for a while and plays knight b5. He spends 18 minutes on that move because you're like, Magnus is luring me into something. So he goes after the pawn on d6, but this was always Magnus's idea, right? Now Magnus is going to transfer the knight here and defend that pawn, kick the knight out, and then start firing away. But Magnus at this point plays knight e8. So he brings that knight back, and then that knight back too. He's bringing both knights out of the front lines to the back. And after knight to b5, which simultaneously pressures this pawn and also opens up this bishop, Alisher says, you know what? These knights are now gone from their outposts, and I got some, you know, what about knight g5? With a very simple idea. e5, queen h7. Pawn to h6 looks possible, but there's sacrifices looming in the position. So Magnus thinks and plays knight g6. He finishes the transfer of the knight, right? That knight went there to transfer. It's transferred. Now he's probably going to kick this knight out. Now Alisher still plays e5. Uh-oh, what's this? Pawn to e5 anyway. The idea is very simple. The queen is opened up. So the knight has no ability to capture. If you take like this, I play bishop takes e5, and look at that queen. Something about the position's off. Like, Magnus's piece coordination is a bit all over the place, right? So what does Magnus do here? His best move might be a6 kicking out the knight, or rook to d8 restructuring the center. But Magnus lashes out. And Alisher just moves his queen off of the pin with the idea to play here and threaten mate. And this is only plus 1.3, but on low depth, it's plus 5. On a high depth, not low depth. If you let the computer think, the game is over. Magnus Carlsen is completely lost. How? Like, where's the, I mean, there's no checkmate, right? Black will defend himself. He's losing because of this. Alisher Suleimanov in this position sacrifices the knight. The knight infiltrates the castle. You have to take it. Otherwise, it's going to rotate around and you can't even win the knight. And it takes a very valuable pawn. You've got to look at pawns protected only by the king. Why is this so good? Because after king takes f7, he just shreds open the position. He has two cannons pointed down the center line. His bishop anchors the center pawn. The knight is ready to gallop in or gallop around and go there. The queen is ready to transfer sideways or diagonally forward. And these pieces are just trapped. Magnus plays bishop takes d5. It would not be a wonderful game of chess if someone didn't sacrifice the rook. Rook takes d5 is a bulldozer, and that's it. Alisher is winning back his material. He got the knight back. Magnus can take. Queen takes d5. Alisher is down a full rook, but the king has nowhere to go. There is only one legal move in this position, and now simply knight to d4. Knight e6 check is a monster threat. Rook to e3, rook f3 is simple but effective. Bishop to c4 in the future is simple but effective. There is no way for Magnus to fight back. He has all of these incredible pieces, and none of them can do anything. He can't trade queens. He can't stop white's bulldozer. Knight f4. Magnus pins the knight to the king. Alisher pins the knight to the king. I'm so used to speaking for Magnus winning. Queen to f4. Magnus has to just give up the knight to survive. But now he is down 2 pawns and a bishop for a rook, and none of these pieces have moved. Queen to b7. Alisher just keeps going forward. The attack literally plays itself. It's completely playing itself. Magnus now plays b5, trying to just secure the position. Alisher takes! The pawn is just hanging! Because queen takes b5, you relinquish your defense of this. And oh my goodness, bishop takes b5. Magnus brings the bishop back. Check. You can't take because it's defended. And now the game ends. Knight to h6. You cannot take the knight because queen takes f8. You have absolutely no way to defend anything. You can play queen to e7. And then I will play check, king g8. And I will probably just slide my bishop back, play knight d6, and slowly execute you along this. It's unbelievable. Magnus Carlsen resigns after knight to h6. This is his lowest rated classical chess defeat in nearly 20 years. Alisher Suleimanov played a fantastic game. Fantastic game. And he was given that opportunity because of a slightly cagey opening approach by Magnus. Just, you know, Magnus just played a little bit provocatively. That's basically all he did with this move, like knight e7. But Alisher had to find knight b5 and knight g5. And he just went at him. I mean, the horses just went on their little journey. Epic sacrifice on f7, realizing the attacking possibilities, and then rook takes d5. It's very rare we see games like this. So, you know, naturally when this happens, you're like, oh my god, what a game. Magnus played not that great this game. It happens. All right, we want to hype Magnus up. I mean, I want to hype Magnus up. You guys really enjoy those videos where Magnus completely, you know, outclasses opponents, but sometimes he loses. And then there's this meme now that every time Magnus loses, he's going to say something, you know, cheating, whatever. But this is all just memes. But then out comes this tweet. And now I have Logan Paul on my sidebar here. Out comes this tweet. I was completely crushed in my game today. This is not to accuse my opponent of cheating, who played an absolutely amazing game and deserved to win. But honestly, as soon as I saw my opponent was wearing a watch early in the game, I lost my ability to concentrate. Now, some of you might be reading that going, a watch? Like, what do you... That's the rule. I obviously take responsibility for my inability to deal with those thoughts properly, but it's also incredibly frustrating to see organizers still not taking anti-cheat seriously at all. There's no broadcast delay, so the moves are live broadcasted, and spectators walking around the playing hall with smartphones. Okay, more information. And then Magnus said, I did ask an arbiter whether watches were allowed, and he clarified smart watches were banned, but not analog watches. And this seems to be against FIDE rules. So Chris Bird is an arbiter, works with the St. Louis Chess Club, and I think just an international arbiter. Very, very, I think, reputable source. And he quotes the FIDE handbook that says a player is forbidden to have any electronic device, and the anti-cheating regulations add wallets, smart glasses, pens, and watches. Which is crazy, because that sounds like some James Bond stuff. This is Olimpiu Urkan, and he's a chess historian. And he, you know, has a little thing here that says "nice watch," and that's, you know, that's the this is. I'm not condoning anything. Like, Alisher played a fantastic game. Alisher is just unfortunately going to be the opponent from which this kind of breaks out. This is the handbook. Sorry for the light mode. FIDE doesn't have a dark mode. This is the quote that says you cannot have electronic devices, and in the anti-cheating regulations, it says other fair play violations are bringing a phone into the playing hall or other forbidden gadgets, like a wallet, a smart glasses, pens, and watches. I went to the Qatar Chess website. I was unable to find anything in particular. But multiple people have now weighed in on this. Maxime Vacher-Lagrave, French Grandmaster, weighed in. And I'm going to pull that up for you in a second. And we're going to get into the other games as well. There's a few other games from this round that I would like to cover. But it is important to bring some of this stuff up. So let me just pull this up for you over here. First of all, Hikaru in an interview said, I go to my games and I wear 2 rings. You know, he wears, I guess he has like a ring that he wears and a wedding ring because he is married. Someone could say he puts something in his rings, right? The whole notion of not being able to concentrate when someone is wearing an analog watch, it's a sign Magnus is not as mentally strong as he once was. Wow, that is intense. I mean, listen, and Hikaru thinks that Magnus of 10 years ago would have destroyed his opponent without, you know, hesitating. But then MVL said, I absolutely agree with this take. Players need to unite to get anti-cheating measures in place at every tournament to hinder cheaters And he's saying Alisher played a completely fair and legitimate game. So again, Alisher, completely legitimate, no question. He just had a watch on. That, like, because he wears a watch, because he's a normal, he just wears a watch, because a lot of people wear watches. So this is, again, going back to big picture stuff in chess. There is absolutely no consistency anywhere. Anywhere in the world of chess. It could be online, it could be offline. There is no players union. There are too many organizations that put on chess tournaments. There is no, while there is an international governing body of the game, FIDE, who puts out a handbook, the rules are not even followed. Apparently, that's what it was said. The arbiter told him that a watch could be worn. I don't think a tournament of that stature with that many excellent players can overrule the FIDE handbook. Your local tournament, allow watches. You have a little tournament at your local library, you don't need somebody there going, take your damn watch off. That's not what but this is different. And that's what we have now. I don't think Magnus is withdrawing. That's not what that was, but spectators walking around the playing hall with smartphones, I get it. It's 2023. Chess kind of has to modernize. Like, we gotta find some sort of solution in the world of chess for this. But this is what happened today. I can't believe we're here again, but we are. Alisher plays an excellent game of chess, but Magnus does point out that he is wearing something that is on the list of things that you cannot wear. He voices it with the arbiter, Magnus, and he let the intrusive thoughts win. And the arbiter did not acknowledge that's weird. I mean, this is a massive existential threat to chess, cheating. And just the worries of it, the concerns of it, the paranoia about it, it's a wild time. And look, it's happening live. Can you imagine online? I mean, it's crazy stuff. All right, my friends. Hikaru's also playing in this tournament, so let's go through this game. Hikaru on board 2 playing against Dai Changran. How is there a grandmaster from ChinaChess.com? There's no profile picture of this guy. Come on! Every time I make a recap and there's like grandmasters and international masters that don't have a profile photo, I'm gonna complain here, and hopefully we find a photo of Dai Changran. I don't know who I don't know who this person is. I think this is like a young grandmaster from China. Which means we got to get a photo, all right? Hikaru went knight f3, bishop c4, bishop c5, and Hikaru played in Italian with pawn to d3. It was a very close structure. Black routed his queenside knight over to the king side, very typical of the Italian, very tense position. And now, Changran Dai played knight h5 and knight to f4, planting a knight firmly in front of Hikaru's king. Hikaru plays bishop to f1. And Black plays f6, a little rock solid structure. And now Hikaru realized, you know what? It's kind of a frozen moment on the board, right? Black is kind of rerouting and playing. So let me kick his knight out. I don't really like where his knight is. Let me slide my queen over to c2, and now d5. So a lot of maneuvering in this game. It takes 20 moves for a piece trade to happen between Hikaru and Changran Dai. Knight to g5, we trade, and Hikaru attacks on the queen side with pawn to b4. Trying to take space, trying to move over there. The double g-pawns do open up the f-file, but how is he gonna move any pieces out of the way of his rook? The knight is stuck. He might have to play knight f4 and just like sack the knight and try to attack, but Hikaru's blocking the bishop. This bishop is blocked by everything, and Hikaru just slowly improves his position on the queen side. And Black plays h6. Hikaru brings the bishop to c4. Now he's ready to go here. Again, if the position clears out, Hikaru's gonna have an a-pawn, right? Like, just very, very hypothetically speaking, I'm not saying this is the best move, but I am just saying, like, that's an outside pass pawn. That is a massive asset in every endgame, right? So Hikaru is gonna have to prepare that. Now, Black plays cd. cd leaves 2-on-1. That is a massive trade by Changran Dai. He takes on d5. Now Hikaru transfers the bishop to the center of the board with pressure here. Bishop's eyeing this way. Remember, Hikaru completely neutralized the attack that was happening toward his king on that side. And queen d3, knight c4. All the pieces are transferring in that direction. That pawn is hanging, but you can't really take this pawn because if bishop takes f7 and a fork, so that would not work. You got to take that first. Knight e3. You still can't take the pawn because if rook takes this. If Hikaru would have taken on c1, potentially you can do this, but I mean, you're getting slaughtered here with the knight coming to f5. And that is exactly what Hikaru does. That is called a Zwischenzug, an in-between move. Before he takes back the rook, he counterattacks the queen moves, and a dominant position. If rook takes a4 was played, Hikaru would play rook to c8, an attraction sacrifice, and knight e7 would be a fork, or even rook c7. Everything is winning here because of the power of the pieces. Knight to f6, take, Hikaru grabs the pawn. He's got 2 passed pawns on the queen side now, and the game is over. Black fights back, Hikaru goes for a queen trade, and simple, straightforward, we have an endgame, but he is simply up a little bit too much. The bishop and the knight are good, but they cannot stop 2 connected passed pawns. Hikaru grabs another pawn to go with the sauce on the side, and the pawns are just going to mobilize pawn to a5. Apparently, you know, black can fight back here, but it's going to be basically impossible. You're going to have to lose one of these pawns for the piece, then you will lose the second pawn, and you will lose the game. Rather than even prolonging this, black just resigned. What a game by Hikaru, by the way. Can I just say, like, excellent control by Hikaru here, showing the level difference. Very controlled game. Black made one overly aggressive strategic mistake here, playing into this structure, and just how expertly and quickly Hikaru reversed everything around. Just awesome. Just super, super, like, just excellent job from Hikaru. I mean, he doesn't need my compliments, but I'm going to compliment the man anyway. Just expertly done. Great control of the king side, not allowing himself to be attacked, controlling the queen side, controlling the center. Just a great game. An excellent game showing the level difference at GM level. And Hikaru starts 2 out of 2, and he's in first place now because he's the highest rated player. So he is going to be on board 1. Because Magnus lost. That's kind of how that goes. I have 2 more games for you. This game had one of the most disgusting conclusions I have ever seen in my life, which is why I will save it for last. And I'm going to show you an all-India battle between SP Sethuraman and Vaishali Ramesh Babu, who is the sister of one Pragnananda Ramesh Babu. This one was also in Italian, might look a little bit similar to that Hikaru game. A4, H6, the bishop gets out of the center. These Italians can be very similar, but this knight is not rotating around to g6. That is a major difference. Both players clearly in some degree of preparation up until this moment, right? So in this game, a little bit less locked. Black might play for d5, white might play for d4. Pawns are going to dance on the queen side. This file is a little bit open, right? Rook a2, white puts the knights out. Vaishali loading up the cannons on the f file. b5, d4. Here comes Sethuraman, 2600. He's got to take over the game, so he plays b5, d4. And he improves his position over here. But just like in the Dai Changren game, at some point, black is going to put a knight on f4. And in Hikaru's game, the knight on f4 was dealt with. But that was because in the Hikaru game, when the knight arrived on the f4 square, the rooks were not on the file. So Hikaru just consolidated and kicked out his knight. But in this game, this looks really unpleasant. And now knight g5. And now, g4. Oh my. Vaishali sacrifices a pawn to bring in the queen. And suddenly, white's position is without any focus and without any purpose. The knight slaughtering the king side. The bishop ready to bounce through the d4 pawn and slaughter on e3 and f2. Queen h4 is on the way. Look at this. And now, Vaishali, just like Alisher Suleimanov, sacrifices the knight. It's a pawn only protected by a king. Rook takes f2 is literally game over on the very next move. So Sethuraman has to defend himself. The knight jumps out, and now the coffin, f3, cutting the circulation of the white position. The rook slides over to g6. She takes the pawn in the center. She slides back over to f4. It's just a matter of time, locking down the center. The white king is going on a run, but all the pawns are falling. Vaishali 2 pawns up. Sethuraman down to seconds. She gets in on the g file. She's going to get to move 40, and now she's got 30 extra minutes on the clock to work with. Queen e4 check. She gives a couple of checks. She's not going to play for a draw. Pawn to e5. You cannot take because of this, and if you go here and then take or don't take, queen e4, and white resigned because your king is going to get mercilessly hunted along the back rank and checkmated. Vaishali, what a monster win for her, beating 2600 rated SP Sethuraman. The rating points in India are a closed ecosystem. They go from some GMs to other very good title players. It's actually quite incredible to see. Great win for her. A lot of upsets this round. This game, though, absolutely brutal. This is Timur Kuibakarov, one of the highest rated players in Australia. He might be the highest rated player in Australia, but it also might be Anton Smirnov. I'm going to look this up right now. Australia FIDE, the highest rated player in Australia is Timur Kuibakarov by a lot. Where is Anton Smirnov? I thought he was Australian. It's Bobby Cheng, second, 2572. What? I'm so confused. Okay, well, I thought they had they don't have that Australian anymore, I guess. E4, E5, Bishop B5. This time we have a Spanish. A lot of E4s. This is an open Spanish. Don't worry about the theory. I'm not going to quiz you on it later. My friends, this game explodes. This is a very sharp line. It was played in the candidates between Hikaru and Fabiano Caruana. You can use that to win your local trivia night. Very sharp and insane system, which leads to super complicated chess where black has a rook and multiple pawns, and white has two pieces, right? It has a bishop and a knight. Knight F1 back. The players threaten us with a repetition of moves. Now pawn to B3. Look at black's time. Black has 7 extra minutes on the clock. He hasn't thought. That's how much theory black knows. Look at this. Look how well prepared black is. Take, bishop to E4. Black finally, he thinks for 4 minutes on that move. He barely even thinks. Bishop B2, rook F4. Okay, there it is. 23 minutes spent. Rook to F4. Very sharp position. We threaten the rook. Now we kick out this rook. And now we take the knight in the center of the board. Tactics all over the place. Knight takes D4. You can take my bishop on B7, but then I take your bishop on E6. Bishop F7. Now bishop slides to C6. Position is equal, but very tense. Look at white's knights. Very powerful in the center of the board. Is it better to trade queens for white or black? I don't know. Neither do the players, which is why they try to keep the queens on the board. And at this point, Timur goes G4. It's a big moment. He's using the pawns in front of his own king to attack black. That's very rare, because normally you want to keep your king safe. But the king is safe. Black has no way of attacking, so he plays G4. Maybe he's going to play G5 a little bit later. Brings his rooks, trades, and now he's got these two powerful knights. Now, I told you, the conclusion of this game is one of the most disgusting that I've ever seen. Rook E1, Queen E4. He starts a full-on pawn attack. Nobody is remaining in front of his king. Queen C6, knight to G5, and my friends, queen takes F6, G takes F6, and watch this. Timur Kuibakarov ends this game with knight F7 check. You cannot take because it's back rank mate and this. But what about king to G8? Well, then his idea is to give this check, force the king back into the corner, and bring his rook. But how is he going to win? You can't checkmate. The rook is covering the entire back rank. There's no smothered mate. Rook to C8. There is smothered mate, my friends. Rook to G7. Rook to G7 sets up knight F7 checkmate. Okay, smothered mate. We've all seen that before. Rook to F8. No, because the threat is rook F8, smothered mate. Anyway, the black king smothered in the corner by 2 knights. 2 horses work together to completely paralyze the black king. I've never seen something like this. I have never seen a smothered mate done without a queen. You sack the queen in the corner, and then the king is shelled in, and you play knight F7. I have never seen an open-air concept smothered mate. That is so rare, where the king actually has breathing room, but the knight completely seals it. That knight plays such a pivotal role in the defense of the rook. Just beautiful stuff. Beautiful, just amazing. What more can I say? Sensational game. Qatar Masters heating up, no pun intended. It's probably like 40 degrees Celsius over in Qatar right now. We're going to see what happens with fair play. We're going to see what happens with spectators. We are going to see what happens with the existential threat that cheating and the concerns of it, whether it is happening or not, play in the future years of chess, whether the events are online or offline, what type of fair play measures have to be taken. Do players have to submit themselves to a colonoscopy before they go to a round? I don't know. But we have a new development in the world of chess and cheating, and Qatar Masters. See you back for round number 3. Get out of here.